China is a very big market for every country, for every businessman. So I think this is why more and more foreigners want to study Chinese.
Because of business reasons, because of career reasons, because of cultural reasons, it only makes sense that we open up our curriculum and to add Mandarin Chinese into it, because this is going to be one of the major destinations for many of us down the road.
China now has a fifth of the world's population. Its GNP has increased by about 10% a year for the past 30 years. And the US currently owes about $770 billion to China. Students who learn Chinese will be well poised to do great things for themselves, for their companies, and for their country in the future. So we really need to understand something about not only the Chinese culture, but the Chinese language and the perspectives that we can derive by learning the language.
It's important to learn Chinese today because the way the world is moving, China has opened up globally for more opportunities. And by our children learning Chinese, they'll be able to be a part of the change.
I came from my old school when I was in the 3rd grade, and I was studying French. But when I came here, my mom said we should study Chinese because everyone says Chinese is the language of the future.
We cannot simply make friends or expect to have relationships with people that we can't understand, that we don't know about.
I think the scientific study tell us the best time for a person to study language when he is young. I think before 12 years old. So if American kids want to study Chinese, it would be better for them to study from elementary school.
So how do we learn Chinese? Obviously, a lot of business people and others who go over to China learn a few phrases. Everyone learns ni hao and xie xie and a few other things, maybe a few idioms or some slang for the amusement of the people around them. But to really know a language and to know a language well takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And learning a language at an early age, before the age of 12 and even before the age of 7, can certainly allow a student to speak with native-like fluency and to make things that would be second nature more like first nature.
So basically, immerse yourself into an environment of the Chinese, and then the language becomes much more natural to you. Just tune your ears first before you're trying to learn the hard part about how to write the Chinese or how to make things grammatically correct.
Came to the orientation, I fell in love with the school at that particular time.
From what I've seen, they're giving them a very strong foundation in the language, all the way from kindergarten. And when they left kindergarten, I think they had a good, strong background of at least 100 words in Chinese, and it starts from day one.
You hear the children actually speaking the language. They're interacting with their teachers, respective teachers, and they speak the respective languages. And that had me so excited when we got home, and I was like, we've got to get her into this school. I'm just too excited.
I've enrolled all three of my children because they're triplets, for one. Here, I wanted them to have something different, and I wasn't a product of a DPS school, but I thought I'd give it a try, and the grandson came after they were enrolled. But it's a challenge, and I wanted them to be challenged.
When I first became principal, there was some question about what kind of immersion program we should have because there's several different types. And the program that preceded me was Total Immersion. Early Total Immersion is the actual formal title. And we went to visit schools around the country that had immersion programs or foreign language programs. We decided that we would stick with Early Total Immersion. That means that in the Total Immersion, there is no English taught, and we have mostly native-speaking teachers. And I really felt that that was the best delivery of instruction. It's most intensive because the teachers traditionally don't translate, and the students have to learn the second language the same way they learned the first language, by hearing it, by understanding it, then learning to speak, read, and write it. And if they have total immersion all day long, then they'll have more time in the language and they'll do a lot better.
Actually, teaching Chinese here, it's a lot of challenge and a lot of experiments because you cannot follow, the traditional way. It's a kind of a new area, and so sometimes you try this, it doesn't work, you have to change it to try another one. So I feel a lot of freedom to try the best, to teach the students best.
And immersion, you don't use a lot of its translation. So basically, they get to feel it by and by they build the language, and we teach them sentence patterns. We put words in that pattern to practice. They know how to use this sentence pattern for different things.
We write character, we write the symbols. She'll go to the board and ask for some questions.
We use the characters put together, that's the compound word. So this is the natural way that Chinese children learn the language.
I try to use pictures and gestures and hand actions and facial expressions to teach the children. And repeating whatever I say and point to the things and ask the students to acting out. So I think that's what I've been using, and I've seen it works very well.
5，你数一下，1、2、3、4、5。现在这1、2、3、4、5，这边变成5。
You lead your kids to the answer. So they need to know how the kids learn. What is the American teaching method? They need to understand that. So they use the method the kids are familiar with to teach Chinese.
My understanding, immersion means that a child acquired a language, first the concept, then connect with the sound. And then once their organs are ready, they can produce the sound. And then meanwhile, they need to acquire the structure of the language. Because we know that when we acquired our native language, our parents, our teacher, they did not teach us every word that coming out of my mouth, their mouth, or then I can automatically, expand that skill. And also, we can understand the sentence that we never heard before.
I feel so proud of my students because they are working very hard in Chinese. So I let them bring book to home to read the textbook every day. And everybody go home to teach their parents Chinese too.
for third graders, I'm trying to immerse in the math. That's the easiest subject to immersion with the Chinese. I usually is because of the MIP test that I have to teach them, especially English language arts and math, the concept in English. Once they got the English concept, so math is easy to immerse in Chinese.
My goals for my students, I have a real firm picture. I would like to see a portfolio of each student produces. It's a video portfolio of them showing how they've demonstrated their learning in the language, but also it would include 2 books that they've written, one in the target language and one in English. So that would show me that they're proficient in both languages.
I think there are a lot of challenges to implementing this kind of a program. I think you really need a teacher who is capable and enthusiastic. You need parents who are willing to accept the fact that the students are going to take a while before they're actually speaking. The incubation period for younger students can be quite a while. So if you're expecting immediate results, unfortunately that's not usually going to be the case in an immersion program. If you can be patient, however, and you can wait for the students to incubate, to form sentence structures, to learn to write, to read, I think that the benefits are enormous. Adult learners may yield results faster, but children, I think, show better results in the long run.
The greatest challenge is finding qualified teachers. We've have to make sure that they're certified. We chose to have native speakers, so making sure that they are committed to learning how to teach in America and getting their certification through the university has been the challenge. Finding them has been the biggest challenge.
And the immersion program is supposed to teach the students from the early age the content areas in the target languages. And because of that, No Child Left Behind, they have to assess the students or the school's achievement by the content areas like a standard test. So, and the tests are given in English. So this is really hold us back.
I think classroom management is very important. Many teachers have very good teaching skills, but if they can't control the children and they won't be able to teach them, I think it is very important, and they find ways to work with the children that keep them in control and making them in love with the language.
Sometimes the basic supplies cannot be, guaranteed, and of course, like technology, all this helps. Like, for instance, if I want to use technology in my schools, sometimes I have to, personally handle it.
The strength of our program is in our teachers. And I've watched some of them who are very timid become very strong, and actually the best teachers we have are very strong Chinese teachers. Some of them started off very timid. They were crying sometimes because, not in front of the children though, but I've seen them really grow into strong because they're committed to what they're doing and they've learned the culture. And I think that's the biggest strength.
The students goes home and once they learn something, and they goes home and tells everybody and teaches everybody and corrects everybody. I think that's a success to me.
The child becomes the teacher, teaching her parents, and she totally enjoys teaching my husband and her language.
The parents always wrote the notes to me, saying my kids did teach me blah 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 what they teach today. So I accept all the letters from parents. They will give me feedback how their children learn Chinese in their family.
When she encounters another Chinese faculty member here and they ask her something in Chinese and she speaks right up, and it's like, wow, I didn't know she could do that. But she's learning, and it is evident. It is evident. It's like, and I see her also interacting with her friends. They speak Chinese to each other sometimes.
Their attitude is different. When we go out, and we go out to a lot of restaurants, and we take in different cultures, and it's mandatory that they speak in a language. And once they do it, I kind of get that look like, okay, I did it, now what? And that's just what I'm looking for.
My class have several very smart kids, so they are learn so fast and they are pick very well the accent and the words. So I need to promote more Chinese language and the most things and as we can.
We actually had a compliment one point. We were out at some store and we'd met this woman who was actually a Chinese teacher teaching in the Birmingham schools. And when she met my daughter and she heard her talking, she said, well, we have a few language classes up here. And she said, I'm the teacher. She said, and based on your child, I want to say at this point my child might have been in kindergarten, first grade. She said, we have classes where English parents can bring their children to learn Chinese. She said, but at the point of what I'm listening with your child, she can come straight into the class with the Chinese.
Within the state, most of our students over the years have been above or at the state level. Most of the time in science and other areas, they've been above the state. They have always been above the district norms, and we still struggle with writing, but that's a problem statewide. That's the only area that we really need to continually develop. But everything else, the reading is great, the math, the science, and the social studies are excellent.
I'm so proud of being here. I'm so happy I can be a teacher in this school because this school is a wonderful school. We have wonderful parents to support all Chinese language program. We have very nice kids to want to learn Chinese. So I'm so glad I have a chance to teach them. We talk to the teachers about curriculum and instruction. I also find it valuable, especially since most of them are native speakers, for them to have a mentoring teacher, someone that they can really talk with in their native language, who has been around. And I think that's really been a blessing to have the teachers who help teach the teachers.
Administration has been good if there has been at any point a problem. There has never been a problem of getting in touch with administrators.
Some of our kids, if they're having an issue with their teachers, we can, through the clubs, through the LSCO, all of those work together, so we're able to get to them what they need. Our clubs are just like pull off of the languages. Hopefully most of them are trying to schedule trips to different parts of the country so that the kids can show off what they know here already.
We've also gotten information from other organizations, and anytime any performances, anything related to the Chinese culture that I get, I disperse that information to the families.
So far as interacting with all the other parents, we get to know each other, and it becomes more like a family.
Many students became interested in Chinese when they studied Chinese in elementary, in middle school. So after they enter into the high school stage, they want to continue their study. If they don't have such opportunity, maybe their interest will disappear. So it's very important for them to have a opportunity to further their study in Chinese.
I don't think I will study Chinese in high school because the high school I want to go to doesn't have Chinese programs.
First, I'll look within Detroit Public Schools to see if they do have continuing Asian languages. If not, I may have to go outside, Detroit Public Schools to see if I can continue her education that way.
We're still working on trying to find a high school that will take our kids just the way, from here straight there. If not, I plan on finding as many tutors or additional resources that I can find to get them in to keep that language going.
I really do like this school, the whole concept of it. I really enjoyed it, and I would like for it to expand.
Doing business with China has a lot to do with friendship. It has a lot to do with understanding people from their perspective, understanding their history, understanding their culture. When you know something about a person, if you know something about their culture, they tend to treat you much better than if you walk in ignorant and know nothing about them. So the more we know about China, the more we know about Chinese, the better we'll be able to work with the Chinese and with their various companies and with their political systems. At this point, I think we cannot afford to ignore China.